This podcast features adult content not suitable for listeners under the age of 18. You have been warned.
Previously on Back to the Story.
We do see a rickety old bridge anchored by two stone short pillars on each side. The bridge is maybe spans 50 feet across. The rope is thick, but it looks old. You look around and you don't see anything, but you hear it.
I don't think we're alone here.
It definitely looks something dark, unnatural, but you're not really sure of its origins. Chain Shrine. Alright, so picking back up, you guys have found a little place within a convergence of crags in order to take a short rest. As the wind is slowly picking up, you all sit down to start to patch up your wounds. Vesper offers the healing kit to everyone, but everyone seems mostly okay. She uses it on herself as Amsen pulls out his lute and plays a song of rest as you begin to heal up your wounds. Did you guys want to do anything in particular besides just healing your wounds and resting?
My flute, not my lute.
Oh, flute.
Yes.
Flute. There we go. Jasper.
While Amsen is playing the flute, I'm just going to kind of look around at everyone and see if I can gauge how they seem in general. Because things have been pretty tense, and I'm just kind of trying to get a sense of everybody's, I guess, emotional state as we're resting after that.
Well, you look around, Ellory, and you see everyone kind of sitting there. You guys can describe your emotional state if you want to, or notice Ellory looking at you.
I mean, Vesper's noticeably sulking. She's a few feet away from everybody else and kind of picking through her medical kit.
Wink is frantically trying to draw those buildings from memory into his sketchbook.
Kalvyn is probably plopped in the middle of everybody, just on his knees, like, kind of, like, monkish, like, trying to combine things with his eyes closed and just mixing files, being like, very much in a trance.
Amsen's playing his flute, and he's kind of looking down towards the ground a little bit, and he notices Ellory and just kind of smiles a little bit and keeps playing a little bit more.
Okay, so in that case, I'm gonna, I guess, wait until Amsen is finished playing, and then I will go sit next to him and ask, so how's your Elvish?
I point at my ears. I'm an elf. Well, mostly.
Yeah, well, I'm a half-elf too, but that doesn't mean that my Elvish is very good.
It's true, your Orcish is better than your Elvish.
Definitely.
I won't tell that to any of the full-blooded elves, don't worry.
Thanks. So I'm going to switch to Elvish in that case and say, well, my mom made me learn a little, but I'm not that great at it, so...
The stories that I learn help me maintain it. A lot of them I learn in Elvish and have to translate.
So, of all of us, I think you know Kalvyn better than anyone else.
I'd like to think so. He's definitely spent the most time around me and my family. But, with him being at the tower and everything, I'm not so confident in my knowledge anymore.
Well, I've never understood him very well, but now I think I understand him even less. Is it just my imagination, or does something seem a little bit off about him since he came back?
Maybe. And I'll kind of look at him as just briefly glance at him as I say that.
Yeah, you look over and you see Kalvyn is just kind of mixing, eyes closed, almost instinctively, mixing these vials together, sniffing them provocatively, I think.
But yeah, I'll look over at Kalvyn, just be like, yeah, I'm not so sure anymore. I like to think that he's the same old Kalvyn, and I know that it's there. But, there's definitely something There's definitely something different.
Sometimes he seems just the same as always. And then there are times like down in the caves when he wanted to kill that Gullah right off the bat, the one that we captured. Or trying to pick a fight in the Copper Sail for no good reason. I don't know,
I think the Copper Sail was a little bit more of a misunderstanding than picking a fight. And
Maybe.
Kalvyn isn't exactly a gentle person most of the time.
Maybe. I mean, that's the least of anything.
Well, I would suggest to talk to him, but he's generally kind of aloof about things.
You know, I keep thinking that I'm going to talk to him, and then realizing that if I do, he'll probably think that I'm trying to pick a fight, or something. And that's the last thing that we need right now.
That's true.
As you can tell from this morning.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Everything that we should do should be towards maintaining our friendship. And certainly while we're in the middle of the wilderness, and I, look around at the crag that we're hiding in from monsters and the environment. It's just one of those things that's always in the back of your mind, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of that right now.
I understand.
He's more likely to listen to you than he is to listen to me. So, if you feel like it's needed, will you talk to him?
Honestly, I've been meaning to talk to him for a while. I just haven't had the opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can talk to him about it.
And, speaking of talking to people, I think you should probably go talk to Vesper as well.
Why is that?
Because she seems upset, and I'm not good with upset people. You are.
I'll look over at her. How cloudy does she look?
I mean, she's a little more vacant, I think, at this point after we've been sitting here for a bit than gloomy, but...
She's cold and breezy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll talk to her when I have the chance to.
All right. Thanks.
You're welcome. It's what I'm here for. Anybody can talk to me about anything.
I hear him say that, and I kind of look away for a minute.
I'll say that anybody can talk to me about anything in common instead of Elvin, so that everybody can understand what I'm saying.
So at the end of this totally elvish conversation, you suddenly hear this sentence in common. As Kalvyn, you're kind of starting to finish up your potion, we'll say.
My eyes kind of cut over to you and then back.
Okay, so as the wind is whipping and an hour is beginning to pass by, does anyone else want to do anything else in particular while you're taking the short rest?
Push-ups, probably work on my core, maybe some sit-ups. Gotta stay stiff and ready.
Gotta stay swole.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. All right, so as you begin to do some push-ups and sit-ups, and everyone is kind of beginning to kind of breathe in and kind of get ready to move again, everyone go ahead and give me a perception check.
Let's go with elf die.
Oh. All right.
Another 18 for me.
Another natural 1. I'm not using that dice.
Also 18 for me.
5.
Okay.
13.
Kalvyn? 13. Okay.
13.
With the wind kind of whipping and you're all kind of beginning to shift and move your equipment and starting to get ready to move again, Wink and Ellory, you kind of hear again. You hear this. You hear over, kind of behind you on the crag, you hear sort of this gentle flapping. And then a gentle just sort of, but you see nothing.
Shit. Guys, I think we might be followed. I think we're being followed.
Was it flapping and then you look and there's nothing there?
Yep.
Unhook my hand crossbow again.
And
Yeah, I've got my bow out and pointed at the direction that it came from.
I'm going to go ahead and cast Mage Armor now.
Okay.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. I'm casting Protection of Good and Evil on myself.
Okay. And which creature are you choosing? Creature type?
It's all of them. It's
all of them?
Aberrations, Celestials, Elementals, Fae Fiends,
Okay.
and Undead.
All right, good to know. All right, so Kalvyn, you kind of, as you're getting up, Ellory and Wink, you see, are turning in one direction as they reach for their weapons. Ellory casting a spell. As you see Amsen and some of the others reacting. Do you do anything in particular?
I'll pull out my swords and face wherever they're facing.
Ooh, is there anywhere I can hide?
Looking around, there's a small kind of, not quite a boulder, but an extension of the wall that kind of sticks out a little bit like a root of a tree. It's big enough for you to hide behind, but not anyone else really.
All right, I'll try and duck behind there.
Okay, so ducking over there.
9.
Okay. A few moments pass, a few seconds. Nothing happens. And then you kind of hear a voice breaking through the wind. Well, you killed our guard dogs, so to speak. You hear this voice kind of echoing off the rocks, as if it's very hard to pinpoint where it is. And you can all tell that this isn't just a natural echoing effect. This sounds like something purposely manipulated via magic or some other means to make it very difficult to place where this voice is coming from. So it kind of sounds, it starts like it sounds from behind you and then to your right, and it's just kind of constantly shifting with every word.
I'm going to take up a defensive stance.
Okay. So
Basically, a dodge would be the
stance.
equivalent to a dodge action. Yeah.
So you get in a pairing stance ready to take the dodge action. You hear the voice again. Well, I am a reasonable individual, but I have been tasked to guard this shrine and to take care of it. I would like some reparations or some sort of fee to collect.
Did we touch the shrine? Did we mess with that at all?
Well, no, but you took out our guard dogs that keeps other creatures away. They can be very useful.
They did their job. We stayed away.
Mm-hmm.
Money
Make a
well
persuasion
spent.
check, actually.
That's a 3 plus negative something minus 2, so that's a 1.
Well, they weren't intended to keep you away. Other more dangerous creatures.
Well,
Surely
I mean,
we can.
quite frankly, if we took them out and you were hoping they would prevent more dangerous creatures from entering, I think you needed better guard dogs. We did you kind of a favor.
Well, you can hear frustration kind of building in his voice.
They did, after all, attack us first, even though we weren't messing with anything.
All right, fine. They were kind of annoying anyway. Still, though. This ride has been sort of out of order for a long time. I'd like to sort of bring it back to its glory days.
Are you lonely?
I have some comrades, but they are unsatisfactory.
Well, I kind of just want to say good luck with that, but, what is it you're looking for?
Tell you what, you make a good point about the guard dogs. They were ineffective, and perhaps I need some more. How about this? Is there anything I can do for you? You look like you've patched your wounds up, but you are clearly not from here, though this one might be, this orcish entity.
I don't really think there's actually anything that we need right now. Anybody else?
No, I think we're fine.
Oh, come now. Do you need potions? I have them.
Actually,
Food?
no.
Rations?
No, we're good on food, actually.
Magic?
Why would you offer anything to us right after asking us for reparations?
Because I felt like it.
That's the one thing that you can count with strange eldritch entities that do not want to show themselves. They kind of do whatever they want.
Right, so he's going to do us a favor and then we owe him even more. I'm good. Let's go.
Well, this is really unfortunate. I hope that you don't come back this way. I won't be so welcoming the next time.
Yeah, don't worry, we won't.
Yeah, the bridge doesn't really work anymore, so we weren't planning to come this way anyways.
We're preparing it, but don't come back there. Because your fat one broke it.
I mean, that's rude.
I bristle slightly at that one.
He's a giant. He's literally just big boned.
Am I the only one that feels like we're being a bit hasty?
Thank
I mean,
you.
It would go a long way for us to trust you if you, showed yourself.
Okay, as a show of good faith, Wiz, would you... And a moment later you hear sort of a sound as you suddenly see the appearance of a creature kind of sitting on a small branch of a sapling, and the branch is kind of leaning down under its weight. You see a small, maybe 3 feet tall-ish, about wink size, red-skinned creature. He's wearing loose, kind of tattered clothes. He has some black, dark claws on his feet and hands. He has 2 horns, but one of the horns looks like it's been broken off. You see he has this wide smile of sharp teeth that are jagged, and a few of them are missing. They're pointing in various directions. His eyes are not quite pointing the same direction. He kind of has a bit of a tummy, and he's just kind of sitting there.
Would it be out of place to ask if I would have an idea of what this creature is? Or who this something?
Yeah, what's your... This would be a... roll either religion... Yeah, roll religion or arcana.
I was actually planning to roll religion myself, so...
I was too.
Okay.
Well, if this has anything to do with my shticks, specifically Fey, Fiends, or Undead...
You would have advantage on this intelligence based. And then Vesper you can roll as well, and Amsen. Sure.
Natural 20.
Hell yeah, even with disadvantage, that's amazing. That's a dirty 20.
Kalvyn.
I rolled a 13.
Okay. Amsen, you've heard stories. Vesper, you've read about these things. This is definitely 100% an imp, a fiendish creature. Kalvyn, you're not totally sure because he's shaped a little different. He's a little pear-shaped and less imposing and scary than the manuals have told you and that Markov and everyone warned you about. The thing it looks more silly than scary, but you're pretty sure it's an imp too.
I'll say to Ellory in Elvish, because I know that she can actually speak Elvish now. I'll say to Ellory in Elvish, this is an imp. We don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, I didn't think we did. We should probably just be on our way.
What kind of magic do you have?
Oh, I have all sorts. I have spells. I have enchanted weapons. I have... You kind of... Well, you don't see them, but I have bows. Yes, bowstrings. I have armor. I have potions. I have all sorts of good things.
And what kind of payment do you accept?
Well...
MasterCard, Visa?
Trying to bring the shrine back to its glory days, and I would just require a small prayer of thanks. That is all.
To who?
Well, to my deity. To the Marcanaz of the second house of hell.
I don't know about you, Wink, but I don't feel like praying to a devil today.
Not a prayer, just a thank you for what I've given you.
Well, if you're speaking to something that can't really be seen and from a different plane of existence, I think that's a prayer.
Yes, it would be a prayer.
Let's get going.
Yeah, I'm not much of a praying type anyway.
So wait, we're just gonna pass up on I mean, he's asking for a thank you. That's like...
Yes, we are going to pass that up.
Well...
I mean, if you want to damn yourself to hell for all eternity, be my guest. But...
Well, thank you for your permission.
You orcish one, I can see you're more logical than these others. What I'm asking is so small.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like much price at all, actually.
Very low price. What can I help you with? What do you need?
No.
I know this area well. I know the histories. I have many physical objects.
I'm going to physically start pushing
I really like my
Kalvyn
swords. I
away
really like these.
from this creature.
Kalvyn, are you resisting or kind of?
No, because he's lost in thought, trying to figure out what he needs.
Okay, so Amsen, you do slowly. You're pushing him
Swords
back.
are all right.
Come on, Kalvyn,
Armor's
please.
pretty
Let's
good.
just.
I made my own armor with my mom.
I mean, if you just maybe show me the bow, I might consider it. If you just,
Wink.
I'm pushing Wink.
Wink, are you resisting?
maybe slightly, but
A
I
little
have
bit?
a
Okay.
7 strength, so I don't think that's going to go very well.
Okay,
Ball, can you
Vesper
grab
kind of
Wink and get
slowly
over
drags
here?
you away. Okay.
Since everyone can probably pick me up like a baby, very heavy baby.
But as they are pushing y'all back and kind of putting some distance from the one on the tree, the voice says, "Well, I don't have the bow with me. That would be back at the shrine, though I do have a few things on me that I could offer."
Let's go,
Any
let's go, let's go,
takers?
let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go.
Yeah, as we're kind of all hustling away, I'm going to say in Infernal. Yeah, I think we're just going to stay away from that shrine, thanks.
Okay. And do you move away with the others?
Definitely.
Is there any kind of you know how you cross yourself? Is there anything like that for AIE that I can do as we leave?
There's kind of a gentle sort of bowing maneuver you can do. This
Okay, just
AI specific.
You're gonna
I'll do that.
recite 10 Hail Marys as we're leaving.
Okay.
Basically.
So as you're moving, and as you do that, yeah, one of those. Pathetic. And as you are moving back and kind of looking over your shoulders, you suddenly see, and you see, in addition to the one that's on the tree, you see 4 others, and you see one who's in kind of darker, velvety black clothes with almost a long, curling beard of black, conjure up flames in their hands and launch flames into the air. You see 5 streaks of fire bolts going into the air. He looks back in your direction, and as you see them disappear, with that one silly-looking one on the tree kind of delaying and being later than the others, but finally he goes invisible too.
At that moment, Kalvyn will turn on. Maybe a shield. Well, where the hell did they go? Oh, God damn it!
The firebolts, do they shoot into the sky as some kind of signal? I'm a little worried.
They do go into the sky to a high altitude.
We should move quickly.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Let's get out of here.
Okay, so who's leading this?
How about the only one skilled in tracking?
What's tracking?
Kalvyn is actually very good at this, even though he doesn't know it somehow.
I don't know where we're going.
I'll point out.
I will lead the way.
I'll point out where the valley narrows to exit this area. We need to go over there.
Okay, someone roll me a survival check, and you can roll it with advantage if 2 people are, if someone's aiding you.
Am I rolling it or am I assisting?
If
Either
Kalvyn
or.
doesn't do it, I will try.
Oh, if Ellory
But
wants to, then by all means.
No, Kalvyn, do it, please.
No, Kalvyn.
I'd rather Kalvyn do it.
Amsen was helping you.
Well, I was trying.
Yeah.
Amsen's helping me. All right.
Yeah,
then I
I'm
will-
pointing
then
out where
that's
we
why
need
I'm
to
asking.
go. Sorry.
If I'm rolling.
Yeah, Kalvyn,
I
roll,
didn't
and
want-
I'll point out the exit to the
Okay.
I don't want to deny anybody an opportunity to roll.
So as
If
Amsen is
Ellory
kind of
wants-
pushing you away, and the creatures shoot the flames, and you kind of see they're gone, you turn around with Amsen and Kalvyn kind of pointing the way. Kalvyn moving forward. What does that mean?
I rolled
Advantage?
a 3 and a 1. Plus 4 is a 7.
Okay. So Kalvyn, you're trying to look around for some sign, and you see there are several kind of crag valleys, small valleys that you can kind of go into, basically the space between ridges where you could go. And this one looks like the better one. It's the more northern one towards the mountain range where you're going towards. So that makes sense. And you just go that direction. You're cutting through it. And for the next couple minutes, you go through and follow this one. It kind of winds up and is slowly leading higher and higher in altitude. The travel begins to slow down with difficult terrain as you're actually almost climbing. You're having to, at points, almost bear crawl up these sort of steep inclines that slows you all down. You do continue to move up this scrag. And travel goes like this for several more hours, and you can see the sun slowly sinking in front of you, actually, as the shadows start to darken quicker as you're in between these ridges that covers the sunlight remaining. You do hear the beginning to build up, and you start to see little flakes of snow and sleet beginning to fall, collecting on your shoulders and upon the ground in front of you. You can see it will not be long before nightfall hits. You can see the storm is beginning to come down, probably within the next 30 minutes to an hour, as you are continuing up this ridge. It looks like it continues upwards.
Any sign of a cave?
Try and find some kind of shelter. A cave would be good.
What did you say, Wink?
I was saying we should look for a cave, so okay. I can do that if someone wants to help me.
It sounds like Ellory was, so you can roll with advantage.
It's great. 16.
Trying to find a cave. Okay. So looking around, you don't immediately, as you're continuing to climb up, you don't immediately notice a cave, but you do notice there's almost a sudden turn to the right. It looks like it continues upwards, or there's a sudden turn to the right that doesn't go incline in altitude. It just stays at the same altitude and turns to the right ridge, and it looks like it actually begins to descend a little bit. It's not quite a cave, but it may lead to one. You're not sure. So you can either continue up or go down.
If we go down, we might at least be able to get shelter on the ridge. So, what do you guys think?
Well, I don't know a whole lot about this kind of environment, but that sounds good to me.
Shrug.
Down we go.
Wait,
okay.
Did you say we found something? Like what is going to say?
Yeah, Kalvyn, you were at the front and climbing in this, so you didn't notice it at first. But you noticed Wink saw kind of a crack in the ridge to the right that started to lead downward. It was sort of a descent area. It wasn't necessarily a cave, but it was descending in sort of a very narrow passageway. And it looks like Wink and Ellory and a few others are beginning to head in that direction.
Okay. I encourage investigating, but I think like we should investigate and then proceed. If that makes sense, guys.
I can investigate the area. I'm good at investigating. Theoretically.
So are y'all going into this? Does it sound like Wink is moving and the rest of you are moving into that descending pathway?
No, I was gonna suggest, I was trying to suggest, like maybe Wink and whoever else wants to go look into it to see if it descends into a place we could rest. If not, maybe Kalvyn and maybe Ball stands outside to.
I can do that if somebody wants to assist
I'll go
me.
with.
Okay.
In case it gets dark.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh wait, no, you're not.
So y'all two are kind of moving down in there as the sun is beginning to set. As you'll move in there, that area, you do see it's descending, and you see the ridge above. As the further you go down the descent, the walls on your right and left begin to get narrower at the top, while remaining sort of wide-ish at the bottom. They do narrow a bit, but they're still, even at their narrowest, is maybe 10 feet wide. To a point, as you continue forward, you see looking up, there's only a very small gap where you can see the sky above. As you're moving in, it's not quite a cave, but as you move only a few minutes ahead, you can see what looks like light at the other end, where it looks like you would be able to see into the valley if you continue. But you don't see that unless you continue on. Otherwise, you can go back and tell the group or push forward.
Yeah, I'll look to Wink.
Could Ball fit in this?
He would have to move slowly, but he could fit.
Alright, so we could hypothetically crash here if we need to. It's sheltered. But yeah, why don't we just go peep our heads out that side and then make our way back?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So as you'll continue for another 5 minutes or so down this trail, just Wink and Amsen, you come to where it looks like above the ridges that were aligning themselves and coming closer together, it looks like they pretty much hit each other. There's spaces where light escapes through, but they're more or less the two walls are rammed against each other. As you'll eventually come out and you see a wider space. And what you see is sort of like this overhang cliff that overlooks. You see the valley below. You see the mountain rising up to your left, and you see far below the valley, the big valley of the Noct mountain range, and the fjord far below, and stretching out to your right, the river. And it has a more or less a ceiling above it in this space.
All right. I'll look to Wink and say, well, this place looks rather nice, at least for the night.
Yeah, other than this cave, is there any other way to get onto the ridge, sort of like flying onto it?
To this, yeah, if you landed into it. So it kind of looks like a cliff face, and there's a bit of a overhang almost, and that's kind of you're overlooking into the ridge, and then you follow that trail from further in. So it would have to land into the ridge, but there is an overhang, a ceiling to it as well.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, let's go back.
All right. So we'll backtrack and let everybody know that this place looks fairly decent.
Okay. Do y'all decide to go back to that area for a rest?
Sounds like probably the best we're going to find.
Grab everyone as you begin to move through. Ball's a little slower, but you're able to kind of come down through this narrow place as the ridge narrows, and eventually it widens out into sort of a very similar cliffside cave as where Orcesus's place was on the cliffside. Very similar to that, as it's maybe 20 feet wide, only maybe about 10, 15 feet deep in spaces. But you're able to get in there and kind of set up camp for the night, if that's what you'd like to do, as the sun is beginning to set.
Before we head to bed, because long rests are bookended by short rests in our system, I'll give another song of rest with my wooden flute.
Okay, so if anyone wanted to roll any more hit die, you can get some extra healing on top. It sounds like you guys are kind of taking the short rest, setting up, your resting area in a most comfortable manner as you can. With Amsen kind of singing a little song, playing his flute just a little bit.
Meli, you had alarm, right?
She kind of nods, yeah.
Do you want to set one up at the entrance to the ridge, just in case anything crawls down there?
Okay. And she goes off to do that.
Thank you.
And so as she's doing that, are y'all doing anything else to prepare as you're taking your short rest, getting ready for the evening?
Just setting up camp.
Technically my mutagen dissolves, but I'm going to make the same one, another potency.
All right. And kind of as you're taking this rest and preparing, eventually Meli comes back. At this point, the sun is completely set. It is dark. You guys can see down. You can kind of hear the river in the distance flowing as the wind begins to whip up, and you begin to see snow falling. There is a lot of wind, snow and sleet, almost blizzard-like. But luckily, the cave is providing a good amount of shelter. There is some snow that gets whipped in, but not too bad for the most part if you stay away from the edge. You can see down at the very base of the mountain in the distance, you can see flames. Little tiny beacons of light in the distance. It's maybe 400 foot down and maybe a few miles.
I wonder if anyone can see our campfire from down there.
Maybe. I just have a thought. I want to check around this ridge for bird's nests of any kind.
Okay. Make a survival check, or I'll say you can probably do investigation on that, or even perception.
Do investigation. It's an 18.
Okay. So looking around, there's nothing in the cave, but kind of sticking your head out of the edge and looking along the sides. You see it's not quite a sheer drop. There's a few cliff edges on the way down, but it's pretty sheer. You see a few areas where there's roots that hang out. The closest one, it looks like there's a root, almost branch, that hangs out about 100 feet down and about 50 feet to your right, where it looks like there's a mass of something. With your vision, you can see there is a mass of, looks like either weeds or grass or something is caught onto it, where you see snow is accumulating. It looks bird nest-ish.
Okay. Well, I will be very uncomfortable both from the height and the birds, and I will probably actually sleep in the crack itself, not out on the shelf. I'm tiny. I'll sleep in the crack.
Awesome. Okay, so you go back, find a little crack to hide in.
And
you do notice,
as he is actually checking, looking down, he does get on his stomach and spider crawls to the edge and just peeps over, very hyperventilating, and then scuttles backwards and goes into the cave.
Okay. And you guys, even if you watch him do it, it's strange. As soon as he kind of gets in that little crack and stops moving, he looks very similar to just a rock in the crack. Even though you just saw him in there, it's like a mind trick. Are y'all doing anything else as the night is beginning to wear on?
Seeing that reminds me, I'm going to go over to Wink and say, so you're pretty good at hiding.
Yeah.
Thinking back to the situation with the Hydra, I'm going to say, how do you feel about being carried if we have to run?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
All right, good to know.
My usual defense is just hide and then go try and catch up. But if you want to just carry me, I'm heavier than I look, sadly. But,
yeah, I probably shouldn't be the one to carry you, but maybe somebody else can if it comes to that.
I've been told it's a very large bag of luggage.
So you've been carried before?
Yeah. On occasion. Mostly, you know what, never mind.
Well, that's good to know. If we ever need that, hopefully we won't, but with our luck, probably at some point.
Though I will say, if you can't find me, trust me that it's usually my intention, and I'll find you.
Yeah, good to know. And I look over at wherever Ball is when Wink says this.
Yeah. I didn't really know he would react like that. That's my bad.
You did what you do, he did what he does.
That's fair. You all seem like you have been together for quite a while.
Yeah. 4 years? Well, longer than that we've known each other, but 4 years since we kind of clicked as a group.
Though, something tells me that a lot has happened since then.
You could say that.
Most of my research has been in anthropological studies of different cultures, and I can observe a bit of tension at times.
Yeah, well, any group of friends is gonna grate on each other at some point.
True, but most aren't out risking their lives battling undead monstrosities. So, I don't know. Maybe lock your shit up.
Yeah, well, I'll keep that under advisement.
Thanks.
And I walk away.
I'll kind of just curl over and go to sleep.
Okay, everyone falls asleep. Are the rest of y'all going to sleep as well? What are you guys doing?
Do we want to take watches?
I still think we should have a watch. Maybe we don't need 2 people with the alarm up, but it would be good to have at least one person awake at any given time.
I'm down for a watch.
I can take one too, because I can see pretty far in the dark.
I'll take a shift.
I'll say if 3 people make perception checks just to expedite it, and y'all can just roll it all at once, and I'll just kind of to expedite these watches a little bit, and I'll let you know if anything happens during the watch.
Who's rolling?
I'll take
all
one.
three of y'all, but just do it in chronological order, but you can do it immediately.
Great, I will bow out then.
Okay.
Natural 20.
Natural 20 on Amsen. On the first watch, second watch, Ellory rolls a
19.
19, and then third watch, Kalvyn,
16.
16. Okay. So the first watch. So Amsen, as everyone's getting some rest and you do your first watch, you're kind of keenly watching this small blinking lights in the distance. What looks like in the vicinity of where you're heading, you can see what you assume to be fires. From how far away you are miles away. These fires have to be substantial in size. These are not torch or small campfires. These are bonfire size at least. And as you're watching that, you notice something peek out of the corner of your eye. You see a shift of shadow, almost, cutting through the sky as you see the snow and this small blizzard beginning to form. You can kind of see in the distance something that cuts through the snow and cuts off the light momentarily. You can see a larger creature coming forth from where that fire is. You see it, something flies up into the air. Just a small blip on your radar. You can barely make it out. But you see something large leave from the fires from that area and fly up into the air and heading towards the southern ridge, which you are on. And just flies towards that ridge and begins to fly along it.
Can I make the connection that maybe the place where the bonfires are, does that look like it might be Ustax?
It's in the right direction, it's in the right area. You can see there are several fires, probably because there's some sort of substantial population there. Yeah, all signs are pointing towards that Ustax.
Okay.
You can't see, but it's probably is.
Yeah. All right. In that case, I'll kind of I'll keep close to I don't know where everybody is, but I'll keep close to where everybody else is, kind of in the middle of everybody, and keep an eye and an ear out in the direction of where I heard and saw the flying thing.
Okay. And so as you're kind of keeping the ear out there, you do, towards the end of your watch, you do hear the sort of, just barely be able to hear it as it kind of passes over where you are.
How big does it sound? Does it sound like the wings flapping?
It sounds like it's some distance away and you can still hear it. It's of some substantial size. It was hard to tell from how far it is. It's at least ball size, if not bigger. But you're guessing not too much bigger than that, though. But okay. It's hard to tell, though. But something like that.
Okay. Then I guess Kalvyn was second, right?
I think Ellory was
Ellory. Second. Okay, so I'll wake up Ellory and let her know that there is something very large flying around at night. Just be careful.
Lovely. I wonder if that's the thing that Kalvyn's supposed to go after.
I don't know. And then I'll point out the bonfires as well and say, also, that's probably Ustax over there. So we're on the right track.
All right.
Just keep an eye out.
Yeah, get some sleep.
Thanks. And I'll go to bed.
Okay, and so shifting watch. Ellory, yours mostly goes by without any issues. You can see those bonfires and they stay lit the entire time of your watch, as well as the entire of Amsen's. You're just kind of watching these distant twinkles, and you're trying to make things out through the snow of the storm. It's kind of hard to, but you can see those lights. You do notice kind of a twinkle on the edge of your eye, and you notice where the river would be. You can't really see it, it's too far away, but where the river would be, towards the middle of the valley, you can see a flicker of light moving along the center of the valley, moving towards Ustax. And you watch it over a couple hours of your watch, slowly moving towards it, and eventually getting there. But eventually your watch comes to a close, and Kalvyn, you take over. I assume Ellory tells Kalvyn about the flying creature and the fires?
Yes, I tell him about what Amsen told me and about what I saw.
Okay. So with that information, Kalvyn, you watch. You don't see the second flames that Ellory told you about. They kind of dissipate before it comes to his watch. But you do see the bonfires in the distance. But otherwise, nothing occurs. For most of your watch, as Kalvyn, you're watching, and the sun, you can just barely see that the sky turning that light blue as you know the sun is about to rise. And you hear a sort of very distant rumbling. You hear sort of a... You hear this, and you almost more feel this vibration very distantly.
Can I get an idea where it's coming from?
Give me a survival check or a perception check. Or I'll say survival or investigation.
Nope.
Okay. It's really hard to tell distant. But you can almost sense that it is moving. You can't really tell in what direction. But it's distant, but close enough to where you can feel this vibration of this.
Okay, I'm gonna quietly try to start waking up the people that haven't, like I'll wake up like Ball and Vesper and Wink, and kind to save having to wake up the other two that have already been awake for the just in case it's nothing or it's not coming. But I'll like be standing over Amps and being like, do I wake them? I don't even know.
Okay, so you all...
And I'm all like, shh, be quiet, guys.
Woken by Kalvyn. And Kalvyn, it goes for a solid 10 minutes. And if Kalvyn points out, you guys can feel it, this vibration, too, for another 10 and then 5 minutes more, and then it disperses. As the rest of you kind of are awoken by Kalvyn or wake up naturally, as the sun is beginning to peek over the Knocked Mountain Range and reveal light upon the valley.
Well...
False alarm. Guess y'all can go back to sleep if y'all want.
We're up. We might as well get a move on. Obviously we can't jump right down there, but, how far do we think we're away? Do you think we can make it down this ridge and to there by the end of the day?
So for those of you that have been traveling and have kind of been informed, you're guessing, looking out there, you're a few miles. If you went straight down somehow and were able to climb down, you could probably get there by the end of the day. It's a question of if you want to climb down and cut through the valley or continue on the ridge away from sort of the patrolling orcs that you've heard that Kristoff warned you about, and brave the breath pass that he told you how to get to.
You said it was about like 400 feet up?
Yeah, about 400 feet up on this kind of semi-cliff.
How much rope do we all have combined?
Not
Does anybody
enough.
have any climber gear?
Ellory has a grappling hook, but that's about as close as we're going to get, I think.
Ball has some climbing gear, actually, but just one set for himself.
I think it's better if we take the long way around, especially at this point.
Agreed.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so you guys kind of pack all your gear up and are going to continue along the path as best you can?
Before we leave, I just want to look out over the valley and see what I can... If I can see any details about Ustax from up here now that it's daylight.
And throughout the night, towards the end of Kalvyn's shift, the blizzard kind of passed over. There's still a heavy wind. There's still some snow, but it's not as thick as it was before. As far as a hard blizzard, it's just a light snow. So you can see a little bit better. Give me a perception check. As you're looking off in that distance, you can no longer see the bonfire, so it's hard to pinpoint it about where you're looking at.
That's a 22.
With the 22, from this distance, it's really far away. You can kind of see the river go straight towards the base of this mountain where you saw the bonfires last night. And you can't really see structures from this far away, but you can see the river goes right up to that point. You can see there's sort of foothills on both sides that sort of provide, where the bonfires were, a natural geographic barrier on both sides, sort of natural defenses. It's sort of difficult to get to except for head-on, essentially.
Well, looks like that place is well protected. Not that we were planning on storming the gates or anything.
Well, too bad we're not going to have fun storming the castle, but, you know.
Just imagine that. How many of us are there now? 7 of us?
Yeah, 7.
I do a quick count. 7 of us trying to storm the gates of a stronghold full of who knows how many orcs.
Good thing we're on a diplomatic mission.
Yep.
Any idea how to get down there?
Well, there's that path. I guess we just go up and then back down. And there's actually a walkable way.
All right. Should a couple of us scout ahead just a little bit then?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. Wink, you and I?
Sure. I'm not particularly observant.
I mean, neither am I, but, you know.
Okay, awesome. This team should work. Let's go.
Wait, hold on a sec. You just openly admitted to we're really bad at this. Well, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to get that straightened
So you
out.
actually care about
Are
things
you
getting done
volunteering?
correctly today? Great, good to know.
Well, I'm just asking Wink
Oh, I
because...
I forgot my character. Right, I don't give a fuck.
Anyways, I guess Wink and I will go because, you know, we're fairly quiet people most of the time, so...
Yeah, super.
Okay. So you guys, as you get all your stuff together, you look out at the valley one more time before heading back out. And it's a beautiful valley. Looks like a quaint German valley with this fjord far below in the distance. And for a moment, you kind of forget how dangerous it is and about the orcs for a moment. It is a beautiful scene as you do grab your stuff and turn back up, heading through the crack, getting back onto the path. With Amsen and Wink heading out ahead some number of feet. If you are heading out quietly, are you just trying to perceive ahead of the rest of the group?
I'm gonna be pretty quiet about it. But yeah, the main idea is to get a good, decent scan of the immediate area,
Okay.
and as far as we can see.
Okay, so both of y'all roll stealth checks, and then one of y'all roll perception with advantage.
Wink can roll perception because he's probably better at it than me.
I am not proficient, and my wisdom is terrible.
Oh, well, okay, I have a +1, so...
Oh, I have a +1, so we're
Oh, okay, so it doesn't matter who rolls. Alright.
great.
Alright.
I rolled a natural 1 for stealth.
Great.
I rolled a... where's my stealth? There it is.
And my...
Dirty 20 for stealth, and,
It's
yeah.
mine with advantage, it's 18
Okay.
for perception.
Okay, so you all begin to head out ahead of the rest of the group. You grab your gear first, moving up. As you're moving up and getting out of that edge, and you're starting to climb the ridge, you're trying to be as quiet as you can, trying not to knock a few rocks loose. As Wink, where Amsen can kind of lean forward and take larger steps to climb, you sometimes have to use your hands just because the length of your body is a little shorter. But as you're reaching up, you grab a stone that looks pretty affixed into the ground, and you pull on it, and it comes loose from the dirt, and the rock falls and kind of falls back down the hill and curves around, but you can still hear it bouncing down, even as it goes out of sight. And there's that moment of about 30 seconds of it just falling down this hill.
Wink just winces with every single clack as it falls,
Amsen does that thing where the first one, he just stops, and then he slowly turns around with each and every clatter of the rock down, and then just stares at Wink like, really, man?
By the end of it, I'm actually kind of impressed it went that long.
Let's just keep going.
After it, eventually you can't hear it anymore, or it stops, you're not sure which. It could be going forever, for all you know. You continue up the incline, climbing, and you start to get over towards the top of the ridge. You can start to actually get to a place where you can walk along and see down in the valley, as you're almost on the very tip of the ridge. As you're walking along, you can see the valley to your right, and looking around with that 18 wink, looking around, there's not a whole lot of vegetation at this altitude. There's a few like grass, there's moss, there's some very small shrubbery with not a whole lot of leaves, but some almost strange, looks like pine tree-like vegetation, but bush-sized. Very strange. Probably the first time you've seen it before. But other than that, there's very little vegetation. Looking around, you don't see a whole lot of tracks or any movement like that. You do see the occasional bird flying above. You see sometimes they'll circle and then they'll fly, they'll duck low. But otherwise, the movement goes on. You don't hear anything or anything like that. The rest of you are following behind. About how far are y'all behind? Like 30 feet, 50, 100? Just a rough...
I'm probably 10 feet behind everybody else, so I don't know how close they're following.
Okay, well, how about this? How far ahead of the group are Amsen and Wink? 50 feet, 30 feet?
I want to say probably 60.
Okay, so in that range, okay. So the group is kind of following behind, and travel like this as you leave in the morning happens for a couple hours. As you're starting to come towards the corner of that, and it's probably gotten to where it's about 1 o'clock, starting to move closer to 1:32. As you're moving along, Wink, with your going off your perception, you start to notice a sound kind of ringing in the air. At this point, the snow has stopped. You hear this kind of this whistling noise. It's strange though, because you hear the wind, but you don't feel it that strong. But you can hear coming from up ahead. You hear more and more whistling. As you're heading towards the corner to curve up north, going towards Ustax, right when you're at that corner, the ridges and the crags start to come up again as you're coming down off the ridges and back into those crags. But you hear at this point the whistling of wind. Very strong. And the closer you all get, the entire group, you start to notice your clothes, your gear start to whip around. The fabric and everything shifting with a stronger wind as you're moving closer. As you continue along, you get to a point where Wink and Amsen, you're up ahead of the rest of the group, and you see something lying on the ground in front of you. It's maybe 40, 50 feet ahead as you're coming up onto sort of a straightaway in this crack.
All right.
Why don't we just wait for them to catch up?
Sure, we could probably do that.
Okay. So you guys kind of slow down, stop. The rest of the group fairly quickly catches up to y'all. They're not 50, 60 feet back. Catches up, and as y'all see Wink and Amsen kind of standing there waiting for y'all.
How much does this look like what Kristoff describes to us?
At this point, it's looking, he said you would see a lot of crags twisting maze-like, and then you would be on a ridge for a while. It's pretty open and straightforward, and then you would dive into, at the corner, some more maze-like crag area. So it seems like you're at that point where you're starting to get into more confusing crag stuff that he told you about. He would say you would hear the whistling of wind. He said you're going to have to pass through one of them, and it's not easy, and he said it's dangerous, and there's supposedly ogres, but he said you will kind of end up going in the back way, so to speak. Everything so far that he's told you, you're seeing.
So I wonder if all this wind is why they call it Ogre's Breath Pass.
Possibly. Since it's very windy up here, should we tie a rope between all of us?
Are we going in between the rocks from here, or are we going to be up on any kind of ledge?
You're kind of in between a shallow valley. You're not on a ledge yet.
Well, unless we have to go to on a ridge or a ledge, I don't think that's necessary then.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there's much for us to fall off of.
Oh, okay. I was on the impression that we were up on top of like a ridge area, and then it was like, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, you came off of that, so now you're going back into sort of the taco-style valleys.
Okay, never mind.
I don't know how I was describing them, but yeah, you're heading into a taco.
Oh boy.
And so the rest of the group, y'all kind of called up to Amsen and Wink, and y'all kind of see ahead in the middle of said taco crag. You see something on the ground, maybe 50, 60 feet out.
How big does it look?
It looks about maybe Kalvyn size, about that size, medium, on the ground, unmoving.
Well, how do we want to handle this? Do you want me to go run up and poke it?
Does it look like a body from here?
If you get a little closer, it looks like a body of some sort, yeah. It's not a rock formation. You can see a little bit of reddish tint on the body and around the area. Kind of dark reddish tint on the snow.
I'll run up to it.
I'll go up as well, and once I get closer, I would like to investigate the area, see kind of what happened and what it is and that kind of thing.
Okay, so as Vesper and Amsen kind of move forward ahead of the rest of the group, Amsen, go ahead and give me that investigation check. As you move up, you see the body, you start to see antlers reaching up. It looks like one of them's been broken off, but you can see it looks like a elk.
And are they... Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, are they going like down into something?
It's actually up. So you're kind of been climbing up, and then it's kind of flattened out, and that's where it kind of is. So you kind of have to get up to the top of the ridge to be able to see it better.
Got it.
But y'all two can see, it does look like a elk. You can see there are wounds. It's dead, unmoving, blood everywhere. That's what you see. And Amsen with that investigation check.
That's a 9, unfortunately.
Was Vesper helping you, or?
Yeah, I would have been since I'm up there.
One more time. I assume she was aiding you.
That's a natural 20. That's awesome.
Okay.
My mithril die is really carrying me tonight.
Yeah, advantage. Aiding is a big, cool mechanic. Okay, so you guys move forward. You see dead elk. As you're kind of talking this over, the natural 20 comes not just from Amsen, but from both of y'all talking it over, looking around. You see dead elk high in a crag in the Noct Mountain region. This is strange to see an elk this far up in this place. It's very hard to get to. You haven't seen an elk anywhere else at this altitude. You hadn't seen an elk or any signs of elk in any of the crags. This is unusual that it would be here. You see, judging on the wounds of the creature, you see claw marks, and you see embedded in where just beyond its front leg shoulder, just beyond it where the lungs are of the creature, you see 3 very accurately placed spikes drilled into it. They almost look like short javelin size. They're maybe 2 feet in length, and they're sort of this tannish, dark brown color. It's strange. They almost look like chitinous. So the same material that your fingernails might be made of is a strange sort of structure. It looks natural, but unusual as well. With that natural 20, you look around, you're in the middle of the taco crag. And to the right, you see an opening that leads to where you're looking towards the fjord in the valley, the major valley. And you see a spike coming out of the ridge. The spike comes out and kind of curves up. And you see impaled upon it, you see another elk body that's impaled upon it. You can see from this distance, you can see runes upon this spike. Maybe you have to get closer to see more.
I'm just staying about 30 feet away from them, but not letting them get too far ahead.
Okay, so if you and anyone else kind of follows them a little bit, you could see it's an elk as well. You can see it's an elk of some sort. But you may not notice the wounds specifically as those two notice.
I would like to reach into my robe and pull off a patch and conjure a sack. It's just a plain old sack. And I'm going to use it to cover up my hands and pull out one of these chitinous spikes from the elk.
Okay. So you open this patch, and it's sort of like you whip it open, kind of like a Ziploc bag with the air deflated. You kind of whip it to allow air in, and suddenly this burlap sack appears. You kind of put your hands in there to use it as some sort of protection. Putting your hands around it, give me an athletics check.
Ooh.
I can assist with that too.
Okay, advantage on athletics is good because I suck at this.
Okay, it's Vesper grabs around it as well. Vesper, without the sack, it is very rough area. Almost feels like grabbing sandpaper, but it's not going to hurt you, but it does feel very rough. And Amsen with advantage.
Well, the first roll's pretty good.
Okay.
Oh, whoops. There's my sheet. The second one is worse, so that's a 16 total.
Okay, so it comes out this spike, and it ends up being about 2 feet long. The first half of it is just stained red with blood. At this point, Ellory, you're coming up, and the rest of you are kind of falling behind, and you can see Amsen and Vesper have just pulled out a spike from this elk, and you see 2 more still embedded in it, as the rest of you are kind of starting to catch up.
So, I don't know much about animals, but I do know about wounds. Do these look fresh?
Give me a medicine check. As Vesper's investigating the wounds, what are the rest of you guys doing?
I want to take the chitinous spike thing and kind of like walk it towards the group, specifically towards Meli. And I would like to assist her in a nature check to identify what creature this thing might have come from.
Okay, so you bring it over to Meli to begin to look over it. Wink, Ellory, Kalvyn, are you guys doing anything in particular?
I'm going to look at the impaled one over on the other spike.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to join Wink doing that.
So one of y'all at advantage, give me an either investigation check or religion check if you're proficient. And Kalvyn, are you doing anything particular as you're moving up, seeing some of these actions going on?
I've got a good investigation.
Please do.
Just trying to stay out of the way.
Okay. Yeah, you don't have to do anything. All right. So what was that medicine check for you, Vesper?
19.
19. Looking at the wounds, looking at the blood loss, you can see the claw marks damaged the creature, probably slowed it down, but they weren't fatal. What was fatal were these 3 spikes impaled into the lungs of the creature. It looks like it's been dead for 2 days? 1 to 2 days. So fairly fresh. We had Meli rolling the nature check at advantage. That the first one. Horrible the second. Okay, so Amsen, with Meli going into this nature check with you talking it over, this is natural. It looks like it's produced organically from a creature. She's going through her knowledge of animals, and she's not really sure what creature produces this, but it is something that produces something like this. It is coming from a creature, so she can confirm that much. And she goes a little bit over the anatomy of the requirements of something that would be able to create this. Probably a large or huge creature or bigger to create something of the size of chitin. And she can kind of judge the layers of it and see that was made fairly quickly, within a day. So she's thinking large creature. Probably predatory, probably of monstral type. And then investigation from Wink and Ellory. As y'all go over to the spike, you can see these strange runes upon it that aren't quite letters, that aren't quite words. But you can see at the base underneath the spike, you can see there are bones laid out. Judging by them, some look like animal bones, some look more humanoid, some are fairly large bones. You see what looks like a scapula of something that was probably a large creature, if not bigger. They're not sure where it is, but these bones seem to be placed in very specific orientation. This looks like some sort of savage, very primitive altar or sacrifice or shrine, a very primordial one or primitive altar of some sort.
I'm going to wave Vesper over and ask her to take a look at it.
And then I want to take the chitinous spike and want to ask Kalvyn, what was the creature that you're trying to hunt, that you were told to hunt again?
Manticore.
A manticore. Is it capable of producing this kind of thing? And I'll hold up the chitinous spike.
Is the manticore capable of producing that kind of thing?
You know the manticore can produce spikes as determined by your letter. You've never seen one before, but the letter did specify there was a reimbursement rate for some of the things you could harvest from a creature. Spikes were one of them.
Okay, I should have pulled that up then. Yeah, I relay that. Sorry, I'm trying to find the letter.
So as you're trying to find that, and Kalvyn's kind of looking it over, where Wink and Ellory are, Vesper, you kind of walk over to where they are, looking at this primitive shrine-like structure. You can either roll a religion check, or you can do 10 plus your skill, and do kind of a passive knowledge.
I don't have. I'm gonna roll for it.
Okay, I guess.
Would you like
That's
inspiration?
I would love inspiration.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna do this one. Just it's not the oldest one that I have written down, but okay. She's a dwelling place for angels. She's a home for every divine spirit, every single diva, and she heals us with her spells just to take away our stings. A fallen is Vesper the Great.
Oh.
So take your bardic inspiration.
It was pretty good roll, but I'll use it anyways because I want to know everything, and that brings it up to a dirty 20.
Okay, so as you go over there listening to Amsen's words, you go where Wink and Ellory are, and looking over at the bones of the runes on the spike itself where the elk is impaled. You see runes have been roughly scratched into the antlers of the elk. You see very roughly scratched into the bones that are purposely placed on the ground. And as you're investigating that, Kalvyn, did you find what you needed, or should I send it again?
No, I got it.
Okay.
Amsen, we should, if those are indeed spikes from the Manicore, those are worth 5 gold each. We should probably hold on to those.
I get a look on my face that's just like, oh, okay. Then I'll motion over and invite him to take the other 2 spikes out of the deer, and then we can store them in the sack that I just conjured.
All right. Kalvyn will go over there and grab those other spikes.
Okay, Kalvyn.
And I'll assist him so you can have advantage.
As you're pulling those out over the next couple minutes, while you are working on getting those out, Vesper, you move over and you start studying these runes, looking at them. This spike is very strange because it's stone, but the way it's molded out of the ridge looks purposeful, yet it doesn't look carved. It's very strange. No natural occurrence should cause this to happen, and yet it doesn't look carved. Judging by the runes and the makeup of it, you have very little expertise or knowledge or training or study in this specific deity, but you notice some of the warning signs. You see above the spike, you see 3 diagonal slash marks, big, wide. You see similar runes upon the spikes and the bones. This is an altar to Duma, the goddess of savage hunt and the goddess of curses.
But
what it's doing way up here, you're not sure. You know she is a dangerous god. Was one of the most... And what did you roll? You said dirty 20?
A dirty 20.
You don't know that much about her temple hierarchy, because very few people know anything at all. But you do know Duma is a manifestation of a soul curse, the first soul curse. When a god was betrayed by the other prime deities and was killed, and in that final moment burned their divine immortal soul, creating Duma. She's a manifestation of a soul burn of the highest caliber. Extremely dangerous. And where other gods and other deities may hunt for balance, as the natural way of things, wolves have to hunt to survive, Duma hunts to kill, to establish as the apex predator. not for food, but to prove they are the apex predator. It's worrisome because you don't know that much about it, because very few people know anything, just that she's dangerous. And that not only do some hunters worship her, but some creatures with some intelligence will worship her as well, in a strange manner.
So I relay this to the group.
And at this point, we'll say that Amsen and Kalvyn have pulled the other spikes out and put it in your bag and have kind of conjured all together.
I just want to paint this picture of like half the group's kind of like staying on alert, making sure that everything's all cool. Me and Kalvyn are sitting there like, oh yeah, we just made 15 gold, buddy. High five. And then Vesper comes in, it's like, guys, we need to leave now.
Yeah.
So I guess we should probably not touch any of that over there. Just to be safe.
Wait, what?
What?
I point at the elk that's impaled on the spike.
And for clarity, it's not the same kind of spike, right?
Oh yeah, no, it's not. It's a spike of stone where the elk is impaled, and the other spikes are smaller, 2 feet, almost small javelins.
I assumed, but I wanted to clarify.
Yeah, good call.
I just feel like we should leave that alone.
Does that one look recent as well, or is it a little older?
You can make a medicine check.
Great. I have no idea what I'm doing there. Oh, I got a 20.
Thinking about this and just looking, you can see blood drip. Still dripping from the body. It's recent enough to where all the blood is not drained out of it. With that check, it was probably done today.
Great.
Perhaps early this morning.
So I want to look for tracks of what did it.
Okay. Survival check. As Wink kind of is looking around and starts looking around, are the rest of you, are you guys doing anything in particular?
Ghost. The farm.
Swan, did you say that relay all that information?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I had just everybody. I just went back over my contract here, and I might have missed over a part that is maybe relevant. It says here that the manicore I'm supposed to be hunting, it's supposed to be bearing some sort of mark on its pelt. I don't know. It doesn't say what kind of mark, but we're finding its markings here. I think maybe when we see that mark, we might know what it is.
Are you saying that this manicore might actually worship this goddess?
Something like that. Maybe not worship. Maybe it's just a part of whoever worships it. I'm not certain without further investigation.
Well, whatever did this did it within the last day. So we should probably leave here.
I'm thinking this might be what flew overhead. I was already thinking that, but...
Makes sense. Something might have to bring the elk here. They're not exactly indigenous.
What does indigenous mean?
Native to the area, Ellory.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Go down to Ustax?
yeah, let's get down.
Yep, let's keep going.
Keeping an eye out as we go.
Okay, so as you kind of have this, finish up this conversation and start to move out again, you guys all start to notice a sort of vibration and a rumbling come. 10 seconds go by and it starts to get louder. You hear the, and it's coming from where you came from. You can hear it start to get louder. There's this rumbling and vibration. You see the bones up beneath the altar, or the shrine, so to speak, start vibrating and shaking. You see the snow is kind of shaking as well in this strange manner as you hear it getting closer and closer to you. What do you
Run or
guys do?
hide.
Run,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, there really isn't much to hide up here, so let's go.
Right.
Run down. Or
Okay.
forward.
Sprinting, sort of running? Okay. So you guys hear it, look at each other, and start to bolt. You continue running through the crags, finding your way. There are multiple methods and paths of travel. So whoever's leading this, someone give me a perception check or a survival check, preferably survival, as you're trying to just make split decisions to quickly move in the right direction.
I can inspire whoever's doing it. You want to do it, Kalvyn?
If you want me to, I will.
Go for it, dude. We're assisting you, and I'll give you an inspiration.
Assist.
All right.
Who's assisting?
Well, I'm sending inspiration, so.
I'll assist.
Okay, how are you assisting?
I am thinking back to all the descriptions that Christoph gave us.
Okay, going over those in your head and just...
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So using your memory of what Christoph told you, you're kind of yelling the instructions at Kalvyn. That's enough to get advantage through 8 on the roll, and then it sounds like a bardic inspiration is coming up.
Yeah. And I will say, this one's a really old one. This is from when Kalvyn ran away from us after we were leaving the tower. Kalvyn walks alone despite our best efforts to tell him no. Don't know where he goes, but follow him, he walks alone. He's got his friends, he's not alone.
All right, so
that was in the D6, right?
D6 inspiration.
Okay, I think I did my math right. I think it's 13.
Okay.
Yep.
So as you'll immediately take off, Ellory is shouting instructions, trying to remember what Christoph said. Amsen is singing, trying to inspire Kalvyn to do his best in these split-second, quick decisions, left, right, left, without really getting the chance to really study the directions well. He's having to make very quick decisions. As soon as you guys take off, that sort of slow rumbling that's slowly moving towards each other pauses for a moment before you start to hear very loud and moving, following you as you begin taking off, sprinting through these crags. Kalvyn, listening to Ellory behind you and this music from Amsen, you right, left, forward, straight, to the right, and you're just making these split-second decisions, moving forward. And you start to hear Amsen's sound get drowned out. The rumbling, you still feel the vibrations as your feet land, but you can no longer hear it because all you hear is as the wind is picking up. It seems like the wind somehow naturally is funneled into these crags that you're moving into at a very rapid pace. It begins whipping your equipment, your clothes around, and almost begins slowing you down. As you are fighting against the wind. As you're moving up, you see 2 directions, left and a right. Ellory, you kind of get to it and you, shit. And you see a left and a right, and you cannot remember which way it's supposed to be. You have to make a split-second decision as you hear the...
Who's in front?
You and Ellory are probably the ones leading. As you hear the rumbling coming up and under.
Right.
I say right.
Okay, boom.
So you take a right and just quickly run. It's starting to come up, and the wind is even forcefully pushing. It is slowing you guys down to the point where you're moving at half speed as you're climbing up this ridge. The incline increases higher and higher and higher to where you're almost bear crawling, half climbing up. To where you get to the top, and you see it suddenly turns to the right, and you see an inclined crag, a very narrow, only about 10 or 15 feet wide, maybe a little wider in some spots, where the wind is brutally whipping through. It is very difficult to move steps. Ellory and Kalvyn, you actually take steps and slide back down for a moment as you hear the rumbling coming from behind you. How do you want to move through this? Are you trying to sprint through it as quickly as you can? Are you slowly and steady? What is your plan to get through this?
Well, we can't move backwards, so my thought would be to push on. Probably heavily, like using my strength. I'm not much of a dex person, so kind of shouldering.
Okay.
Maybe even in front, maybe what I could do is try to like try to like throw it, like kind of push Ellory behind me so that I can brunt the wind and kind of push on, and they could kind of at the very least step behind me, just kind of like wind tunnel it, sort of like block the
we
wind.
get Ball up front, or is it too narrow in here?
Well, yeah,
Move him up there.
You can potentially move him up, but at the moment he's sort of towards the backish, but he can maybe move up at first. As you are pushing through this wind, the rest of the group catches up. Everyone needs to go ahead and make an athletics check as this wind immediately hits you as you are trying to push through this.
One question first. The rumbling behind us, has it been gaining on us?
It's slower than how fast you've been running, but
Okay.
it is still heading in your direction because you are not quiet. But
Okay.
there is some space between you.
And I know he's not here, but seeing this, will Ball allow Wink to sort of just crawl up on his shoulder? I am too tiny to try and push my way through that.
Yeah. Wink, I'll say Ball will scoop you up, and he'll kind of he'll just carry you.
If he can set me on his shoulder somehow, I want to like have my bow as I'm squatting over it,
Okay,
just like
yeah.
on his shoulders.
Yeah, you can kind of sit around turning backwards to look behind you. That would work.
So that's a 6 on my athletics.
11
Okay.
on mine.
18.
So, Kalvyn, with an 18, you can move at half speed forward. Ellory, what did you get?
11.
11. You can't push forward. You try to, and you slip back down on the snow. The wind is brutal, just. But you don't fall backwards. Vesper, you got a 6.
Uh-huh.
You actually start to and you slide back 5 feet. I'll just put you there for now. Amsen, 12. You're unable to push forward, but you're not knocked backwards either. And then let me roll for Ball. Should be fine. Unless I roll a 6.
Is it supposed to be dark?
No, I'll fix that in a second.
Thanks.
So Ball is able to stand still, unmoving, and then Meli. Meli. See her strength score. Yeah, Meli actually slides back a little bit as well. And so we'll put her by Vesper here. And we'll scoop Ball up a little bit with Wink. So as this wind is roaring and you're struggling to push through, Kalvyn, are you going to stay with the group or are you going to move forward?
Well, is there any way to do, like, would there be any advantage to, like I said, just trying to stand in front of them, and if I can push forward, they can kind of move with me?
Yeah, I'll say you can aid someone. So with your successful check, I can say you can bring some person up a stage. So you can take a failure up to a neutral or a neutral up to a success. So it would have to be Amsen, Vesper, or Ellory that you want to change.
Or Meli.
Or Meli.
I'm technically nowhere. I mean, if we're going by where we are on the map, would I be able to do anybody, or?
I kind of placed you on this, so after that we'll start to figure out the map situation, but it is a semi-theater of the mind that I'm sort of using this to keep track of movement.
Okay. I'd probably reach for Meli, assuming that she's the weakest.
Okay, so instead of sliding back, you actually keep her in line with you. She kind of ducks behind you, you kind of grab her and kind of keep her. You don't move forward, but you keep her from moving back. You can hear the vibrations moving forward, and as you guys are not being stealthy, the wind continues to beat. You guys can give me another athletics check, or you can try some other manner, anything you want to do to try to get through this gap.
I would like to try going over to the wall and seeing if if holding onto that can help me kind of pull myself forward with my arms as well as my legs.
Okay, give me an athletics check.
I would like
as
to.
You're moving over there.
I would like to do the same.
Okay, another athletics check.
It's another 11.
Okay.
That's a 13.
I'll do the same. 2. That's a 9.
Okay. So y'all two, Ellory and Amsen, y'all can get to the wall, and feeling on it, it's mostly smooth, but there's places where you can kind of grab it, and there's angles on the path ahead that kind of turn the wind to where it's going to help you a little bit. It's going to lower that DC. But as for now, that's as far as you can get. Vesper, you said you rolled a 9?
Mm-hmm.
You start to slip back. Ball starts to move forward. 5, 10. Ball's actually, instead, he's going to just grab you, Vesper. And he sees you sliding back, he's going to put your hand up, just grab you. Kalvyn, Or are you just trying to trudge forward? Are you trying any other options?
Yeah, just pushing.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead and make a athletics check.
That's not good. It's 8.
An 8. An 8, you actually start to slide back a little bit. You slide back 5 feet back. As you hear the vibrating starting to get closer, starting to catch up. And that... Up ahead through the wind, you hear a kind of... And you hear this strange tongue. You can't quite make it out through the wind, but some sort of deep rumbling voice. Behind you, the vibration gets quicker. What are you guys doing? You can trudge ahead. You can use the wall.
Yeah, I'm going to try and use the wall again, if I can.
Okay, try to get to the wall. Athletics check.
That's 17.
17. Okay, so you can move at half speed, and you can get to the wall. So you can move basically 15 feet forward. 10, 15, and you can be against the wall, so that DC is going to be lower. You can be on either side wherever you want to be.
I can't see anything, so sure.
I'll fix that. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
All right. Who else is trying something?
Can we all grab hands?
Yeah, you certainly can if you guys can get to one another. And Vesper, you can move yourself where you would actually want to be,
Okay.
but at that same line. But yeah, you guys, if you guys are within 5 feet of each other, you guys could grab hands if y'all wanted to.
Sure, we can try that.
Okay. Okay, so trying this. We'll say instead of all of y'all making checks, I'll say one person make an athletics check at advantage.
Kalvyn.
Okay. I can do it, you guys, if I find my dice. Well, that's not bad. That's a little bit better. It's a 19.
A 19? Okay. So overall, the group is successful in moving up. Because you're having to make up for some people falling back, some people staying neutral, some people pushing forward, your movement is slow. So I'll say only 10 feet instead of the 15, but you are able to start to trudge forward, moving forward. As the vibrating wink, you kind of focusing more on that as you're turned around, the vibration is getting closer. You can tell it's probably going to be on you within maybe 24 seconds.
Okay. I'm just going to have a ready to action with an arrow ready to go.
Okay. All right, so
I'll do the same with my hand crossbow, actually.
Okay.
So wait,
Amsen
hang on. Thinking in here with the wind, am I even going to be able to fire an arrow?
With your proficiency in arrows, firing in this sort of environment is going to be very difficult.
The wind
with how fast the wind is.
The wind is heading. It would be a tailwind for Wink, right?
Yeah, it's sort of whipping through this. It would be tailwind, but it is sort of chaotically snaking through.
Okay.
You would try, but it would be difficult.
Okay.
Well, I'll still have it ready.
Okay. So getting it ready. Amsen, you could prepare it, but that would kind of have to... You'll be using your action to do that instead of moving with the group. Wink can do it because he's just being carried by ball, but you can choose to stop or move forward.
In that case, I'll just keep an eye at the back. I won't have my crossbow.
Yeah, you can have the crossbow ready in case something comes moving forward with the group. Are you going to try the same plan? Or just try something else?
No, I'll just keep moving with the group.
Okay, you're going to do the same. If you're going to do the same hand-holding attempt, whoever one person can roll at advantage a athletics check. As you'll hear the rumbling getting closer, and you can start to hear a sort of a coming from up ahead.
Is that my cue?
That would be probably your cue.
14.
14, okay. So you're able to move up a few feet. As you're moving up, you can hear the vibration getting closer, and you can start to hear those distant footfalls, the doom, 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 getting closer, coming from up ahead. At this point, guys, looking at the time, I think we're going to pick up here next week to see how you guys get out of the Ogre's Breath Pass with vibration coming from behind and footfalls from the front.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Back to the Story. For notifications when an episode goes live, you can subscribe to us on podcasts.com or follow us on Twitter at back2_the story. Or if you would like further information about the campaign, the player characters, NPCs, or behind-the-scenes sneak peeks, follow us on Tumblr at back-to-the-story.tumblr.com.